Hey guys, happy Wednesday. It is Amy, and I hope you guys are just as excited about Wellness Wednesday as I am. If you're just joining us, or maybe you missed the post, every Wednesday this month, and I'm hoping to continue it for the next 90 days through the end of the year, we will be having Wellness Wednesday, where every Wednesday we will talk about a specific wellness topic. There'll be a video training, and then the post throughout the day on the page, Pink Rockstars, will be about that topic. So today's topic is love your guts. And I'm really, really excited to kind of kick off this series because our gut, our microbiome, is actually the epicenter for everything in our bodies, okay? And we're gonna learn about that today. We're gonna learn why it's the foundation for so many things. We're gonna talk about what the heck it is, where it comes from, how you get it, how we get it out of balance, and why Plexus products are so effective at healing the gut. And then we'll talk a little bit about what that means and how they work, okay? So this live today is actually going to be a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone sees it. Hopefully my connection is good and I'm not jumpy. As you guys know, I'm living in an RV, so oftentimes, we have to kind of be at the mercy of the internet gods. So I'm going to share my screen. Now, if you guys have questions, please ask. Oh, let me turn the Wi-Fi off on my phone real quick. Sorry, that'll just give us more juice for this streaming video. So if you have questions, please ask, because I'm going to be in share screen and there's a delay with the live video on the team page. I will get to all the questions at the end, okay? So here we go. I am sharing our PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully you guys can see that. You can still hear me and everything is good. So let's talk about love your guts. It is Wellness Wednesday, all right? What exactly is our gut? Well, you'll hear it called our gut. You'll hear it called the microbiome. And honestly, before Plexus, before I did any research into the microbiome, I thought when people talked about their gut, they were talking just about like our tummy. I didn't realize that when we talk about that, sure, we're meaning the intestines and all the organs, but it's really this complex ecosystem hosting more than 100 trillion microorganisms, okay? All of this bacteria is housed in our gut. In fact, bacterial cells outnumber our human cells 10 to 1, which means we're actually 90% bacteria throughout our entire body. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But there's thousands of different species. You guys have probably heard maybe that, our skin has its own microbiome. But actually 90% of all the bacteria throughout our body is located in the gut. And that includes bacteria. It includes, it includes funguses, viruses, and it's very, very important to our survival. We actually could not survive without this complex ecosystem. It controls everything from our immunity to our mood. And one article that I will share later today is from Harvard. They actually call our gut the second brain because it's that powerful. And it's really eye-opening once you dive into this and you see many of the things that you may be suffering from that are either disease or actually stuff that you thought was just a normal part of maybe getting older are actually tied directly to our gut, okay? In fact, there's so much bacteria in there that there are 300 times more bacteria than there are stars in the Milky Way. So how incredible is that? This just shows you all of the different species. I said there were thousands of different species. So you have the microbiome in our gut, which is the main one we talk about. There's also the skin microbiome, which is what makes our skincare Joyome so effective. It works with our skin's microbiome that has thousands of species of bacteria. There's also the microbiome in our mouth and our pharynx and the respiratory system. We have also a microbiome in our urogenital tract, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But in case you guys didn't know, this isn't anything new, the microbiome. There's actually something called the Microbiome Project. It was started about 10 years ago, similar to the Human Genome Project, and that is where they have been mapping, scientists have been mapping what you see here on the screen, all of the different species, how they work, how they interact with each other, and how they affect our bodies and our systems and our health. But doctors, the medical field, haven't really been on the cutting edge of this. I have doctors tell me all the time that this is not something they study in medical school. They don't talk about the microbiome. They never talked about its connection to disease, right? And how by healing that, you can maybe change so many of the ailments that we suffer from. But luckily, now they are starting to pay attention. So hopefully you have a doctor that understands the microbiome, is open to learning about it, and really believes in healing the root cause of disease instead of just masking it with a prescription. If you do not, I would look for another doctor. So this is actually something you may have seen before. It's a quote from Hippocrates. He's considered the father of modern medicine. He was a philosopher, and he was onto something. He has this quote that all disease begins in the gut. Can you imagine if we had just listened to him, and throughout history, we would have kept this in mind when modern medicine was being developed and coming to life? If you, like I said, if you ask your doctor, they will tell you this is not something that was taught in medical school. But luckily, people are finally paying attention. And listen, mark my words, you guys, this is all you're going to hear about in the next 5 to 10 years. If you are paying any attention to commercials on TV, products that are coming out, everyone is jumping on the bandwagon of probiotics, prebiotics, the microbiome. They're putting it, of course, it's been in yogurts for a while. Every vitamin company now is coming out with probiotics. It's in skincare, but rest assured that Plexus has been around long before it got popular. We were way ahead of the curve, but everyone now is wanting to be like us because they know we were onto something, okay? So the reason we talk so much about the microbiome in our health, though, is because of the role it plays. It is the epicenter of our health, of disease, of illnesses, of mood disorders, all right? It's very, very critical. It plays a huge role. Now, when you look inside the microbiome and all those bacteria, you have good bacteria, you have bad bacteria, you even have opportunistic bacteria, okay? But all of these work together to play a role in everything, in all you see here on the screen. It regulates our immunity. It helps with our food that we digest and don't digest. It actually is kind of the gatekeeper for nutrients. So oftentimes I have people who eat really, really, really healthy all the time, but they have either vitamin deficiencies, or they actually can't lose weight. And that means they have a gut imbalance typically, because when you have an issue with your microbiome, you can't absorb the nutrients that you're eating. Sorry, the screen's going to shake because I'm doing laundry. The spin cycle. All right. It also, the microbiome controls our hormone production, neurotransmitter production. It has a key role in serotonin production. It really, really is just a very critical part to all about the human body. All right, so what does that mean though for disease? What is the role of bacteria in diseases? If you do any sort of research, yeah, I mean, you can do a Google research and you type in gut bacteria and a whole list of things is going to come up. Cancers, mood disorders, IBS, Crohn's, migraines, autoimmune disease. So when we are in perfect balance, okay, you are less likely to develop these types of diseases. It also, when you're in perfect balance, it shouldn't affect things. You should have a good mood and good sleep. But unfortunately, guys, no one is in perfect balance. We're going to talk about that, okay? But if it's too high or too low, that's when you develop a lot of these symptoms. That's when you may have disrupted sleep, all of the signs of dysbiosis. So let's talk though, before we talk about getting out of balance and how we fix it, let's talk about where the heck does the microbiome come from? Okay, we're all born with it, but how do we develop it? Well, it actually begins in the womb. All right, and all of these things play a part. You actually inherit your microbiome from your mother. So if your mom is in a state of dysbiosis when she is pregnant and delivering you, then you are going to inherit as a baby that dysbiosis. And the reason I like to talk about this is because we have people who have children or maybe themselves have suffered from something since they were a kid, right? And they say, I've tried everything, Plexus won't help because I've had migraines since I was a kid. Well, that could be because you've actually never treated the microbiome. And those things that you've had since you were a kid, even though you were born with them, it's because you were born with a leaky gut. And if you heal the leaky gut, you can heal many of those things that you have suffered from for so many years, all right? And actually, childbirth and the type of childbirth dictates your microbiome. I don't know if you guys know, but actually when the baby comes through the birth canal, it actually swallows its first mouthfuls of bacteria, which inhabit the sterile gut. So the baby's gut in utero is sterile. There's no bacteria in it. As the baby comes through the birth canal, it inherits all of that good bacteria from mom. Now, many babies are born via C-section. Okay, it's necessary. However, when they're born via cesarean, they do not go through the birth canal and they do not get that first gulp of bacteria. They get bacteria that's introduced through the surgical process, okay? So many babies who are born via C-section, even though it's necessary, they are going to come out with less of that good bacteria. You can see here on the screen some of the bacteria that they get during the birth canal versus during the C-section. One of those bacteria is the Staphylococcus, which we know is a bad bacteria. Now, the good news is it takes 2 years for our microbiome to fully develop. So in the first 2 years of life, we know babies who breastfeed, they get more of the microbiome good bacteria than those who are on formula. And what foods your kid eats in the first 2 years and their environmental factors, if they're on antibiotics, all of that plays a role in their microbiome. And I know for Adelaide, she was a breastfed and a formula-fed baby, and she was on antibiotics before she was a year old. So already that alone, even though she came through the birth canal, she had signs of a leaky gut, okay? And so that is where it begins. But the good news is we can come into that balance. We can help improve our gut and really get a lot of that good bacteria that we need. So it might begin at childbirth, but what can kind of throw off the balance? Okay, we already talked about the birth canal and breastfeeding versus, formula feeding and C-sections. But the other things, guys, that can affect our microbiome that many people don't even realize, poor diet, staying inside. So if you live in a colder climate and you're inside more often and you're breathing kind of recirculated air and you're not going outside and breathing in some of the good air, that affects your microbiome. Being too clean. Okay, do you know somebody who's constantly using the hand sanitizer? Chances are that person is more sick more often. I actually used to work with a guy. He was my boss. He's the co-author to the 2 books I wrote. He would buy the Costco size of that antibacterial gel. And I mean, he was a little OCD about pumping it all day long. He also was the most sickly person in our office. He was always sick. He has chronic illnesses. And I am pretty convinced that it's because he was constantly getting rid of the good bacteria. So there is such a thing as being too clean, okay? Other things that we do, like alcohol, dental work, being on antibiotics, taking the birth control pill, all of that affects the balance of our microbiome. And then other things that we can't control, like pollution in the air, our soil depletion. Our soil now is not the same soil that we had 50 years ago. It's actually depleted of its nutrients. So even if you grew your own vegetables in your own backyard and they're all organic, you're not getting the same nutrients you would had you done that 50 years ago. In fact, if you ate 1 apple back in 1949, you would have to eat 52 of those apples today to get the same nutrients, right? Isn't that just mind-blowing? And it really proves the point of why we need supplementation. Before Plexus, guys, I was one of those people that was anti-supplement. I didn't think it was necessary. I thought if I ate healthy and went to the gym, I would be fine. There are doctors that will tell you, no, if you eat a pretty well-balanced diet, you don't need a vitamin. Well, guys, that's old information. That is just not true, because our food supply is not what it used to be. And it's absolutely necessary that we supplement our bodies to make sure they get all of the things that they need. So I want to talk a little bit about antibiotics, because this is a big topic and this is a big, big reason for dysbiosis. Now, antibiotics aren't bad. Sometimes they are necessary. We need them. We need them to fight off disease and illness, okay? So I'm not saying don't take antibiotics. I just want you to know what this is about and maybe how you can help it a little bit, okay? So when you are prescribed an antibiotic, it can actually, and you take the full dose, say it's usually about 7 to 10 days, that actually disrupts your balance in your gut for an entire year, okay? So bio means life, anti means against, right? So it's anti-life. It's killing off all of the bacteria in your gut, which again is necessary. If you take antibiotics, it means you got some bad stuff making you sick. It's killing those off. But it's also, guys, killing off the good stuff. It's wiping the slate clean. And the average person, the average healthy child, by the time they're 18, they will be prescribed an antibiotic 10 to 20 times. All right, I mean, that is excessive. Now, it's certainly necessary, but if we focus, guys, on healing our guts and keeping our guts full of probiotics and prebiotics, which is before life, right? So those feed the bacteria, and pro is for life. It's going to help all that gut flora flourish. We will help reduce how many times our kiddos need to be on antibiotics. So before Plexus, Adelaide, I told you, she was on antibiotics, I'd say half a dozen times before she was at least a year old, right? Kid stuff, earaches, really common. Not viruses, because she can't do anything with that, but definitely for some ear infections. Well, guys, I started her on Plexus at 20 months with her pediatrician's approval. She has not needed antibiotics, knock on wood. She's 5. I couldn't even tell you the last time she was on an antibiotic. It's definitely been at least 2 years. And that just is because we heal her gut. She's on the kids vitamin. She's on ProBio 5. We do a really good job of making sure that we are healing that gut to keep that ecosystem as balanced as we can. Okay, so one thing you can do is, one, you definitely want to take your antibiotics to the end of your prescription. Don't only take 5 and then stop. And then also make sure they're actually necessary. Sometimes we are quick to ask for, or we are quick to prescribe an antibiotic when it may not be absolutely necessary. Okay, but those are kind of the number one reason why a lot of us are in dysbiosis. Okay, so what is that? So when your gut balance is, or when your gut flora, all the bacteria in there, when it is damaged or when it's in an imbalance, either you have too much bad or too much good, it's called dysbiosis, okay? And when this happens, particularly when you have too much of the bad yeast and not enough of the good yeast, opportunistic bacteria take over, okay? That's the yeast, that's the candida, that's viruses, parasites, leads to inflammation, leads to illnesses such as autoimmune disease, allergies, IBS, obesity, okay? Research even shows that this dysbiosis can alter cognitive development, emotions, and behaviors. And that, I mean, that is just so incredible that just all those little bacteria affect so much about us, okay? Then, guys, when the bad bacteria are overgrown and they multiply, they actually perforate and damage the lining of our intestinal walls. I'm going to show you a graphic here in a minute to explain that. These holes are these perforations. That's what allows those unwanted microbes and toxins to enter our bloodstream. Just a second. Adelaide, I need you to stop. Mommy's on a call. This is what is called a leaky gut. Okay, that's what a leaky gut is. Now, when those toxins enter our bloodstream, our body must do whatever it can to eliminate those toxins through any route it can, all right? So it's a fungal infection, and that compromises our immune function, our skin, our joints. And I have bad news, guys. We're all in balance. We are all in a state of dysbiosis, all right? So this is a gross picture, but this is what it looks like. This is the lining of the intestinal wall, and this is what happens when the bacteria perforate the lining of the gut, and these small holes that I talked about are what get those toxins and microbes and opportunistic bacteria into our bloodstream. Now, this is a great graphic to look at a healthy gut versus a leaky gut. All right, so on the left, you see the lining of our intestinal tract, and they're very tightly wound. I wish I had a pointer here, but they're very tightly connected. See, nothing's getting through there. Nothing's getting into the bloodstream. It's protected with our nutrients, our immune cells. Everything is operating as it should, and the pathogens and undigested food particles are being extricated from our body. They're not even getting through, okay? But as we talked about, when you're in dysbiosis, you have antibiotics, your diet, all of those things we talked about, when they start impacting and getting through, you have these compromised junctions. So that's those teeny tiny little holes in our intestinal tract, and that's where all of these opportunistic bacteria start to take over, right? So when you have some undigested food particles and maybe you have an opportunistic bacteria that is taken over, that's where you get food sensitivities, food allergies, reduced nutrient absorption. Stuff is then getting into the bloodstream, and that's where we get all of those illnesses and all of those things that make us sick, infections. That's when stress will affect us more, when we get those compromised junctions and those little perforations in our system. So how does the body react? Well, I told you that it must use whatever route it can to get rid of those toxins, right? To get rid of that fungus. Initially, of course, it goes through the liver. That's how our body naturally detoxes. But this increased flow, the liver can't keep up, and those detox pathways go to other places: the lungs, the skin, the urine, the mucous membranes. Our body is trying to get rid of these kind of invaders that have gotten into our bloodstream, and it's trying all it can, but those pathways where it normally gets rid of these toxins are blocked, and it's trying other ways. So what happens when our body can't keep up? We get sick, guys. We get sick. I want you to look at this page. There's a lot of words on here. These are all symptoms of a leaky gut. These are all things that happen when you're in dysbiosis. and all those bad bacteria start getting into our bloodstream, okay? So everything from, I mean, I had 21 of these symptoms before Plexus, and the ones I had, I thought it was just normal. I thought it was normal to have menstrual period cramps. I thought it was normal to have be irritable sometimes, to have fatigue, to have headaches, to sometimes be bloated, to not go to the bathroom every day. I had thyroid disease, right? I had PMS, like big time. So I thought all of that was just normal. Well, it's not, guys. It's not. So if you look at this and you have any of these, and I will like give an award to someone who doesn't have any of these. I mean, we all have had diarrhea. We all have been constipated. We've all been bloated. We've all had fatigue. We've all had indigestion, gassiness, abdominal pain, right? We've all been irritated. And I don't know any woman who's not had PMS. Like, where was this information when I was in high school? Hello? Or college. So these are all of the things that can happen when you have that dysbiosis, all right? So how do you fix it? Well, guys, it's not just there's no silver bullet. There's not one thing that's going to fix your leaky gut or get you back into balance. It's actually a collection of things, all right? It's a kind of a shotgun approach instead of a silver bullet. It's a silver shotgun shell. So one is diet. What are you eating? What does your diet look like? If the majority of your diet comes from a box, then you need to change your diet and eat more things that come from the earth. Nowadays, even the Doritos that we ate in the 80s are not the same Doritos we're eating now, all right? The food industry is constantly looking for cheaper ways to mass produce things to put in your food. So they're constantly coming up with more and more chemicals to make it cheaper and easier to produce a lot of those foods. I mean, there are so many foods that I grew up eating as a kid that now is not even a food, right? Like fruit roll-ups. I don't even know if there's fruit in those. But things like that, really look at your diet. Eat more fruits and vegetables and whole grains and lean proteins and things that come from the earth and not necessarily in a box, okay? Sugar. Guys, sugar is the devil. We will do a whole training on sugar and how it's as addictive as cocaine. But the reason we talk about sugar with the microbiome is because it actually feeds the bad bacteria, right? They thrive on sugar. So here's what's going to happen after the holidays. Mark my words, guys, okay? We are all going to be in a major state of dysbiosis after the holidays because we're going to eat more sugar. We're going to have more cakes and pies and candies. We're going to drink more wine, more alcohol. It's the holidays. That's what people do, right? That is going to just feed all the bad bacteria. So take it from me. Here's a tip. Increase your probiotic over the holidays when you're having more sugar. All right, that's going to help counteract some of those effects. And listen, fake sugar is just as bad. So if you think that, oh, I'm okay because I do diet soda or I do Splenda in my baking, guys, that is just as bad, if not worse than real sugar, because not only does it still feed the bacteria, it actually, the chemicals in fake sugar do tons more damage to your body and actually trick your body into producing more glucose. We could talk about that later, but you want to avoid that. As you can, you want to avoid certain drugs such as antibiotics. Now, I'm not saying avoid them altogether. I realize they are necessary. I'm not saying that. But those, and also NSAIDs, anti-inflammatories that you take over the counter, those all perforate the gut. That's why I love Plexus Ease. Guys, it doesn't damage the gut. There are no long-term effects. So if you're someone like me, before Plexus, I would pop Aleve all the time for my cramps. Or if I got a headache, well, I haven't had to buy an Aleve in almost 4 years. If we ever do get a headache now or like a muscle cramp, we take Ease. No long-term damage, no real-time damage to our gut. The other most important thing you can do to fix this imbalance is take probiotics. However, you just can't take any probiotic. Guys, this is why people who take those really expensive refrigerated prescription probiotics with 27 billion CFUs, don't get any better. The key to fixing your gut with probiotics is you have to kill off the bad guys. You can't just keep putting in the good guys hoping they'll crowd them out. You got to kill off the overgrowth. And the only way you can kill off the overgrowth is to take a probiotic that has an antifungal and digestive enzymes. That's why Probio 5 is so effective. Okay, I like to use the analogy of a flower garden. So your gut is a flower garden, and it has been full of gorgeous, beautiful flowers, but now it's suddenly overrun with mushrooms. If that was your garden at home, would you just plant a ton more pretty flowers and hope to crowd out the mushrooms? No, you'd start weeding out those mushrooms. You would pull them, pluck them, spray weed killer, kill them off, and then you would plant more pretty flowers. That is what Probio 5 does. That is why the triplex is the key system and helps so many people. That's why the person that has thyroid disease like myself is on triplex, but also the person that has asthma or the person that has migraines. That's why the triplex can help so many health issues, because it gets into our microbiome and it resets that balance. It kills off the good guys and it replenishes it, or it kills off the bad guys and it replenishes it with the good guys. So if you know someone who is taking a probiotic and they don't think they need Probio 5 because their probiotic has 25 billion CFUs, they are missing the boat. Their probiotic is actually playing the odds, right? Their probiotic is hoping to crowd out the bad guys. Ours just kills it off. That's why you feel so much better. So I hope you guys loved this Wellness Wednesday and the Love Your Guts presentation. I'm going to pop over to the team page and see if there were any questions on the live video that I missed before I turn it off. Oh, hey guys, I'm so glad so many of you guys were on. Okay, so I cannot see all of the comments. It won't let me in real time. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them and I will jump back in later tonight to answer them. And this is a great training to tag your new ambassadors who are on the triplex or who are on Joyome. We didn't really talk about Joyome, but the skin microbiome is a huge surface of organisms, and Joyome actually works with those bacteria, which is why you can get such great results, whereas other skincare that's chemical-based actually destroys your skin's natural microbiome. So thank you guys for joining me. Thanks for being on. Bye-bye.